56. That was probably the last time. Yes. You know when you've swapped souls with a nigga. Like, I'm still, like, I think part of the reason why me and my ex can't let go of each other is because we swap souls. And, like, you know, it's like swapping souls is like dropping the Thriller of sex. Like, there'll never be another album like it. It's not that y'all won't have good albums. You know what I mean? It's no. Y'all can't swap. You can't swap souls with a nigga all the time. Like, you don't have soul swapping sex all the time. You know, hold on. I just want to take a look. Okay, relax. As I was saying, you don't want to have soul swapping sex every day, all the time. Would have you calling out from work. Would have you just being out here following. Like, you can't do that. You know, you can't do that. But what you can do is, you know, aim high, you know, perhaps less, having less niggas fuck you is probably a good look. Doesn't mean that you can't have sex with niggas, but I mean, stop having niggas fuck you, you know? Yeah, stop doing that. Let's normalize that in the world. Maybe no, do we want to? I don't know, y'all. Anyways, listen. Shout out to all of y'all who are having soul swapping sex. Good on ya. Okay. For the rest of us who are just out here having, you know, good old Wonder Wheat bread. You know, we ain't having no honey nut bread sex. We just having good old Wonder Wheat, you know, handprint sex. I mean, it's whatever, you know. It's whatever. I'm telling you, you know what I am having some goodness of? Some weed. Let's talk about weed for a minute, and let's talk about my weed man before we get into the next story. Because this week seemed to be a very uneventful week in the entertainment world, right? Whatever. We're far more interesting than them, aren't we? Far more interesting, darling. I hope you've read that Mariah Carey book by now, or at least listen to it on Audible. What an amazing book. I can't stop talking about it. So at any rate, all right, so weird thing happened this week. You know, I really gotta say, shout out to everyone who is championing themselves, who is, you know, their biggest cheerleader. I am coming to find out during this 2020 that no matter how many friends and family and amazing loved ones I have around me, I've got me, myself, and Irene. Sometimes that's what you have to call Jesus. Hey, Irene, it's me. You know, but yeah. You know, I am, you know, part of my mindfulness journey is ensuring that I remain anchored in my relationship with God. And it's difficult, not when times are bad. It is difficult when nothing is going on and things are pretty mundane and you're kind of just, you're chilling, you know? You're just chilling. You're coasting, you know? You're riding the wave. And, you know, you might have some everyday life stuff happening to you, but not anything too crazy. And I think that when you're in that kind of flow, sometimes it's easy to disconnect, you know, and just to continue to ride the wave. And you're not really in a bad place with God. You're just not really in a communicative place with God. And so for me, the struggle, or not the struggle, but the challenge has been, how do I remain incommunicado with God? And how do I keep this relationship going? Because I don't want it to feel like I'm treating God like this genie who, you know, I just call on whenever things things are fucked up. You know those relationships. You have some of those friends, you know what I mean, who, they keep up with you. It's all good, but let something be going on. And boy, you'll see how great they are with communication. You'll see how great they are. You'll see how sensitive they are and how attentive they could be, because in times of trial, we can reconcile need. And I don't want my relationships to be like that. So I start first with my relationship with God and my relationship with myself, and then transition that into, the horizontal relationships that I have around me. So, I had something happen this week where I had to champion myself. I scrolling through the internets and I see a seat at the table. And I'm like, oh my God, what? So to put some context to it, I see it on a flyer for, an event. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's not me. But, I'm not arrogant enough to believe that, like, every time I see or hear the words "a seat at the table," that it's immediately about my podcast. I know sometimes that, it's a common phrase that's used. It's the title of several other podcasts, albums, songs, whatever, But I think that I definitely have to be honest in saying that when I hear it after 119 shows and 3 years in my own personal world, I think of my podcast. Well, anyways, long story short, it was not in context to the podcast, but, I still wanted to just kind of see like what it was about, because if it had something to do with, product or something that someone was pushing, I wanted to know, I don't know if I could do anything about it, but I just felt like, hey, it would be worth knowing. And, anyways, seeing it was a little bit unnerving, which it always is. I even cringe when I hear it on the television, because as much as it has to do with my immediate world, I totally understand that it's also a common phrase. Just like if you heard someone say, oh, it's a vibe, and the name of your podcast was It's a Vibe, or, you had a clothing company or whatever. Common phrases are often reused. People sometimes even use their names as, moniker for their business or whatever the case is. And it would be off-putting if you heard your name being used somewhere else, even though names are common around the world, but it's still unnerving if you see your name printed in the paper or something like that, but it's not you, It's like, could you imagine if you used your name as a business and on the front page of the Daily News, they say, oh, Lindsay Wagner found dead. But you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm Lindsay Wagner. What? But it's not you, and it's not you because you're you and you're reading it. But still, it would be unnerving, you know what I mean? Anyways, I asked a friend about it, and, they assured me of what it was. And I was like, all right, cool, no worries. I totally understand. It's just a bit unnerving, but I get it. Just wanted to know what context they were using it in, and, but whatever. And in me expressing that I found it unnerving, as any person would, they, asked me, well, why? Why would you find it unnerving? In the same way, I just tried to explain it. I don't think I necessarily had the context of the words at the time to properly explain it, because it was still like happening. But, same way I just explained to you. And the person kind of went on to say, well, I don't understand why you would be unnerved. It's a common phrase that's used. And I said, no, I totally understand. And, I get it, and I think for me, part of it might be like an ego thing it definitely is, I think what I started to do was associate who I am with what I do, right? Meaning like I see it and I immediately, my ego was like, that's you. You're a seat at the table. You know what I mean? And immediately it was like, but you're not. You're not, like you're not a seat at the table. You are the work that you do with this podcast. You are not your job. You are not this nigga's baby moms. You're not that. Those are the things that you do, but the ego will tell you that those titles are in fact who you are. So it can rattle you when someone comes for your wig as far as the things that you associate with being who you are. So I'm standing there and I'm reading it and I'm, saying I don't, I understand. I totally understand. And it feels like a knife when the person on the other end is like, listen, just so you know, people don't associate pretty much the name of your podcast with everything. Like a seat at the table, people hear that and they don't think of your podcast, girl. It's the name of Solange's album. It is, I don't think that this person even knows you. And it felt like I was standing there and someone was just shooting rifles at me like, girl, you think anybody give a fuck about your stupid little podcast? Truly is what it felt like. And I know the person on the other end, I would like to believe, didn't, their intention wasn't to impart that feeling that I picked up. But I also know that, I think that it is imperative that we are always cognizant of how we deliver and how mindful we are, and the person on the other end not knowing where they are, what they've been through, are they okay that day, how sensitive they may be. You never truly know. So being conscious in every moment is what I strive for, because I don't, whether intentionally or unintentionally, ever want to have a moment where the knife is already in and I'm screwing it in deeper, Like I know that people don't associate this podcast with, every time they hear the words a seat at the table, or the common, a seat at the table metaphor, I'm sure they don't immediately think, oh yeah, the podcast. I'm sure. Okay. And to be honest with you, you can take the name. You can take the name, truly. Because the work that we do here, the relationship that's been developed, the mindfulness journey that we've been on is far beyond just us having a symbolic seat at the table. It's beyond that. The work that I do, the way that I, the things that I've done on this podcast for 119 episodes for 3 years, is far beyond a party. It's a good time, but this is, I'm hoping to change lives here. And so whether you call it a seat at the table or you call it, whatever you want to call this time, it is not lost on me that you are listening to me and you could be doing anything else in the fucking world. You could be doing, and I don't care if it's just 5 people. I don't care if it's 1,500 people. I don't care if it's 500,000 people, 10 million people. You could be doing anything else in the world. And the fact that you would take this time out of your life to be listening to me, to be spending time with me. Child, don't even get me started. I have to ride my own dick about that. You know, it's okay that other people don't feel the same way about your dreams that you do. It's okay. It's okay.